Yeah. Sitaram, Jai Shri Krishna, welcome to each and every one of you on our Living with Mantra today. And we will focus a little bit on our journey in the path of life, or on the road of life, or in this river of life, whatever we may call it. But if we go back to our Shastras, they said, well, look, each individual is somewhere on this journey of life. But sometimes, if we do not know where we are, then it may be difficult for us to focus our mental energy into getting what we call a foothold or a stronghold in this divine road of your life. But before we do that, if we can all, compose ourselves, and let us clasp our hands and let us do some nice mantras that ask the Lord, to give each and every one of you good health and happiness, and to remove from your consciousness any negativities that you may have, and replace it with happiness. So let us start with Om Vishwani Deva. Om Vishwani Deva Savitar Duritani Parasuva Yad Bhadram Tana Asuva. O Supreme Strength of my mind, enable me to be strong enough to remove from my thoughts all of those thoughts that bring unhappiness to me, and give me the courage and the knowledge and the inspiration to only attract all of those good qualities that will make my journey towards dharma and moksha very easy to maneuver. Then by now, each and every one of you at least should have the tune of this mantra. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvisha Vahe. And the tune of this mantra, or the thinking of this mantra, is the same thought process that goes through the whole of the Bhagavad Gita, that goes through the whole of the Ramayana, that goes through the whole of every single book on good living and good thinking. So what is the thought of this mantra? Sahaviryam Karva Vahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. O Lord, let us all be viryam, let us all be strengthened, not for you to be strong and then dominate the weak, but you are recognizing the universal presence of that one benevolent Supreme Lord, or Supreme Energy, or the Supreme Bhagwan that is present in all. So therefore, this is the unifying factor that should make all of us love each other and to act in each other's interests. But we know we live in a world and we live in a society, sometime in our home, in our placement of work, in our community, in our social interactions, where there are people who are genuinely not of what we call dharmic character. And you may find, because of their behavior, they do many activities that can be considered to be dharmic. The challenge here is to not to get emotionally involved. So those type of what we call embodiments start to affect your pure way of thinking. Their behavior is their behavior. Your behavior is your behavior. So that is the essence of all of the mantras, is to recognize that we need to be blessed to reach this level where we do not get angry, we do not get annoyed, we do not get malicious, and we do not get jealous of anyone that causes unhappiness. So this is why living with this mantra and living with the word like Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. On the invitation that we sent out, if you look at the top right hand corner, it has this mantra: O Supreme Lord, Sarve, let all be happy. And why would you not want everyone to be happy? If you are of a divine nature, this prayers is yours every day. We might not know it in the Sanskrit, but you can say, O Lord, O Supreme Lord, your love exists in all beings, biped and quadruped. Inspire me today so that my happiness can bring happiness to all. And in living this type of way, you are gradually moving up the ladder of life. Your Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. You're gradually moving from what we call this mundane nature, or this low nature, what we call of tamasic nature, of darkness, of getting angry, of losing your temper very quickly, of being disorganized. You're moving away from that to suddenly, I can't believe that I feel as good as I am, because I've moved from tamasoma jyotirgamaya to have this divine light. And just a note that prayers changes everything, and prayers do change everything. Devotees, one more. So what I said to you as where we ended last week was that praise and praying, it's on the screen for you to read with me, increases that to which it is directed. Praise draws and accumulates spiritual substance, and continual praise and praying can bring forth immediate prosperity. You may want to say, well, what about the law of karma? Devotees, Bhagwan is what we call omniscient. He can override the law of karma any one time. He can change your status at any one time by virtue of your change in your thought. In one of the verses of the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan Shri Krishna clearly states that even if someone who is previously what we can describe had accumulated janam and janam of what we call bad karma, the moment he thinks of Krishna, he becomes purified. Or the moment he recognizes his divinity, and he now can feel his divinity in every cell of this body, he become immunized from bad karma. He become immunized from suffering. And this is what we call divine praying does for you. Praying and praising draws and accumulates spiritual life, and continual prayers can realize in healing of all forms of illness and problems. Irrespective of our thinking, all of us are human beings, and we have this common what we call innate desire not to have any forms of pains or illnesses that can create various problems in our life. And this is why we say health, good health is king. And when we speak about health in a divine way, we mean both physical health, so we are free from pain, and spiritual health. So our thinking is healthy and conducive to your own spiritual growth. Praying draws and accumulates knowledge, and it can bring forward guidance and help for any problems. Praise can open a new, wonderful world to us because praise draws and accumulates good, and it gives its power for expression. So this is why we should pray. We should pray in order to bring healing to our life and to the life of others. In last week's discussion, I demonstrated to you how you should pray when someone is ill in your family and there are two of you there, how you hold hands, you close your eyes, and you pray for what we call the wellness of that person. Let us now do this beautiful prayer again that has immense what we call spiritual energy. I chant it slowly and then you can chant it with me. Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Together. Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. And you're praying for what we call for inspiration to make progress of your spiritual life in this world. And what you're saying, oh Lord, lead me from where I am to a place where I want to go. There was two very, very great devotees. And they were doing what we call Gayatri Sadhana. And so what happened, they did this for Janam, not from Janam, from years to years, tens and thousands of times. And they felt very frustrated that they were doing these prayers and this, what we call moksha, is not coming, or what we call appearing in front of them. So they said, okay, we don't want this moksha anymore. So before that incident, they went to their Guruji and said, Guruji, when am I going to get the spiritual realization? The Guruji said, not in this lifetime. You have to be reborn. And that discussion went on 3 or 4 times until they got frustrated and they lost the need for spiritual emancipation. The moment they lost that desire, immediately Guruji appeared in front of them and said, today you have been reborn. Today you have moved from death to immortality. And this comes the moment you let go of that desire to want this Amritam. The desire of Amritam shall be fulfilled for you. It's a beautiful concept. You know, sometimes you're looking for your keys in your home. And the moment you think of the key, the key never appears in front of you. And the moment you let go and you stop looking for it, that key appears in front of you. And this is just a simple lesson of how when you let go, you get what you want. So let us go now in order for us. Each one of us is somewhere in this stage of life. Somewhere. I mean, we must not take what we call the year guidance as being written in stone. But if we were going to college and we had to, write out what are the 4 stages of life of any Hindu, then we would have written the first stage is that of a brahmacharya or brahmacharya. The second is grihast ashram, which means it's that stage when you've qualified, you've got your university degree, you've educated in the blue stage, and you've moved down to the golden stage where you get married, you have your husband or wife, and you have children. The third stage of life is that we move after your children have grown up and you have grandchildren. Your focus change. You cannot give up what you have, but your focus change. And the final stage of your life is that what we call sannyasa. As thinking has moved on, each one of these stages is what we call a state of mind. Because many people nowadays, they never get married. So they would not be able to then logically go on to the vanaprastha or the sannyasi. So literally they would not be able to go to van and live a life in the forest of contemplation, or they would not be able to be grihastha ashrama. They would not be able to have a married life. But that does not mean that they cannot be a sannyasi. And this is the beauty of our dharma. Nothing is close to anyone, neither position, neither your gender, neither your age. At any age, you can become a brahmacharya or a brahmacharya. You can become that person who lives the life of a bachelor. In this context, bachelor means man or woman not having a relationship with the other gender. So you can dedicate your life to study, and as we know, there are many mature students. The second thing is we have to skip the grihastha ashram or the vanaprastha ashram. But it doesn't mean that you do not contribute to society, you do not give charity, you do not what we call prepare for the latter phases of your life. But today, we will focus on what we call the sannyasin stage of our life, because all of us want to reach that stage. And how do we get that stage, and what mantras do we use to guide us along that stage? One second. Phases of giving up material desires, and I would add mental desires and prejudices, wandering and ascetic stage of life. So my commentary here is that for the uplifted thinking is about the stage of our thought and not taking account of our age. It is the level of your thinking, is the level of your thought will determine whether you are a sannyasi or you are in the earliest stage of your life. Our dharma is replete with examples of very, very young, very great rishi like Sutji and Sukdev. They were barely the age of 16 when they narrated the Srimad Bhagavata. So we do not have to, what we call, cast things in stone. Our dharma is very flexible. And what it does, it teaches us whatever you do on the path of dharma, especially in the path of dharma, you never lose it. Or whatever you do on the journey to moksha, you never lose it. And that is why you find some children born at a very young age are extremely spiritually adept. They are like a very old soul in the body of a baby. And this applies to each and every one of us. Let us work hard to progress our dharmic activities on our mokshic mental framework. So the 4 stages of life on the screen is we start with knowing what is dharma, that we always should live a virtuous life. But many of us dependent on our mind have different definition of virtues. And sometimes even a person who is not virtuous wants to justify their wrong deed by saying they were right. But whatever stage of life, all of us should work to all forms of success. And this is a very, what we call, controversial stage. Dharma, arth, kam, and it is before moksha. So this karma cannot be bad. It cannot be injurious, nor can it be an impediment to your moksha. For it comes after dharma, arth, and kam. And what it means, or we have to look at it, enjoy your life. Enjoy the pleasures of your life. But whatever you're enjoying, it must be in the mode of supreme consciousness. If you're going to enjoy your food, let it be food that is kind to your body, but also part of your food mentally must be set aside to do good or to feed those who cannot be fed. So if you can just repeat this, our purpose of life or our stages of life is dharma, arth, kam, and moksha. And so we come now into the real qualities of a sannyasa. The sannyasi is a stage of life where, if we look at it from a material point of view, we are saying, okay, and now this sannyasi now, he was previously a brahmacharya, he had gone to university, he had married, he had got good life, good house, good cars, good possessions. And now what has happened, he has reached a stage where he feels he need to contemplate. But you do not have to leave your family to live this wondrous life. You know, in the days when these philosophy were outlined in ancient India, that was the custom and the tradition then for people to go and live in the forest. But that's India, where, you know, I hope it's that part of India where it's warm and where they're not poisonous animals, poisonous snakes, or dangerous animals. But it's much more easier to live this life, this sannyasa life, in this current age, because you have a comfortable home. You can determine the quality of noise and the quality of environment you have in your home. So let us go on to our definition. We are not the things we possess. And this is so important, that this is the theme running through all of these mantras, that you, that person who is you, is that beautiful soul. The mind may think it owns the car, the houses, the equipment. This is ownership comes from the mind and not from the Atma. The Atma has no need. The Atma is birthless and deathless. It is not subject to the requirements of identifying with anything material, because it is not material in nature. The desires of the body, therefore, are not ours. Desires like lust are seldom satiated, so why be driven by them? And this is an important concept that we do not need to go further. But you know, if you desire something, the moment you get it, you desire something else. And unless we can learn to stop that trigger, to stop the trigger that causes us to generate these material desires, we end up only having possessions but not having dharma. This is not to suggest that one suppresses one's urges. Sannyasa is about transcending all desires through contemplation and viveka, wisdom, and not by suppressing them. There's a beautiful line in the Ramayana in Balkan. It goes like this: Binu sate sanga vive kana hoi, Rama kripa binu sulubana sohi. Devotees. It says Rama kripa. Rama in this context represents your pure Atma. It says that viveka or wisdom, the purity of your life, can only become by recognizing your innate spiritual strength. And once you recognize your spiritual strength, then you're mentally supercharged to what we call separate the forks of a road from right from wrong. So let us now go and define what a true sannyasi is. And it's really nicely stated in this beautiful bhajan. It's a nice Veda bhajan. And if we go through just the meaning before we do the song, it says, I've given you, O Supreme Lord, all the burden of all the burden of this life in your hands. All the burden are in your hands. The victory is in your hands, and failure in your hands, and again failure in your hands. So very nice katha again. In the Mahabharata war, there's a beautiful story. Duryodhan was really upset with Bhishma Pitama and says, look, you're the head of our army, but yet you're scared to go and fight. And of course, Bhishma Pitama could not take this insult and says, okay, tomorrow I will go. And by the end of the day, it's either Arjuna will die or I will die. Now, for those who know the gifts of Bhishma Pitama, it was virtually impossible for him to be defeated in a battle. So on that night now, Bhagwan Shri Krishna is prancing, how shall we deal with Bhishma Pitama tomorrow? So then he goes and visits Arjuna. As he goes to Arjuna's tent, Arjuna is fast asleep. He's fast in such a deep sleep that Arjuna is snoring. Bhagwan Shri Krishna then wakes up Arjuna and he says, Arjuna, haven't you heard what's going to happen tomorrow? Aren't you worried, Arjuna? Arjuna wakes up. He says, Vasudeva, if you are there, why do I need to worry about it? And this is a beautiful example of putting all of what we call the issues of your life to have a divine solution. Remember, this divine solution is within you. All of these bhajans is to make you spiritually stronger. And Bhagwan Shri Krishna really reinforces that in the Bhagavad Gita, where he tells you in no uncertain terms, do all the pujas that you want. Read all the books that you want. They will not be of any assistance to you until you udhare atma atmanam na atmanam ash sadhaye atmaeva yat mano bandhur atmaeva ripur atmana. Oh Arjuna, and all of us this applies to, it is up to you to elevate yourself through the power of your mind and not degrade yourself, for the mind can be the friend and also the enemy of the self. And this is where a prayer will come in, and you yourself will close your eyes and make a prayer for yourself. O Supreme Lord that resides within me, guide me by my intellect so that I will make all of the right decision, that I will never be anything but a friend of myself. And as you have this thought in your head, you focus on the center of your forehead where it has what you call your divya drishti, or your eye of intuition and inspiration. And as you walk down, you feel that you're pushing out the radiation of beatitude from your forehead. You must try this tonight and tomorrow, that when you're walking, compose of yourself and let your forehead, let your third eyes be your real eyes. You will be amazed at the calmness and the peace it brings to you. We are responsible for our own elevation or debasement. Nobody can traverse the path of God realization for us. Same thing, devotees. People think that they can pray for you. We can pray with each other. Or in the case of someone who cannot pray, then the Lord allows us to intercede, where we can use His divine, where we can use ourself as what we call the medium or the aerial. There we can send out positive thoughts to heal and help someone. Saints and gurus shows us the way, but we have to travel ourselves. There is a saying, there are two birds sitting on a tree, one guru and one disciple. The guru will descend by his own works, and the disciple will also be able to climb down by his own karmas. There again, be focused on your own karma. Be focused on your own efforts. So let us do this beautiful bhajan. अब सौ पदिया इस जीवन का सब भार तुम्हारे हाथों में, सब भार तुम्हारे हाथों में है, जीत तुम्हारी हाथों में और हार तुम्हारे हाथों में और हार तुम्हारे हाथों में. Devotees, join with me to sing it twice. अब सौ पदिया इस जीवन का सब भार तुम्हारे हाथों में, सब भार तुम्हारे हाथों में है, जीत तुम्हारे हाथों में और हार तुम्हारे हाथों में और हार तुम्हारे हाथों में. अब सौ पदिया इस जीवन का सब भार तुम्हारे हाथों में, सब भार तुम्हारे हाथों में. यदि मानुष का मुझे जन्म मिले, तू तव चरणों का पुजारी बनो. Together. यदि मानुष का मुझे जन्म मिले, तू तव चरणों का पुजारी बनो. एक पूजक की रग रग का होतार तुम्हारे हाथों में, होतार तुम्हारी हाथों में. अब सौ पदिया इस जीवन का सब भार तुम्हारे हाथों में, सब भार तुम्हारी है, जीत तुम्हारी हाथों में और हार तुम्हारे हाथों में और हार तुम्हारे हाथों में और हार तुम्हारे हाथों में. Devotees, we are indeed blessed that we are born with a body and a consciousness to have the ability to pray. And this is the only reason why you were given this beautiful human body. Everything else is what we call an addition, or a limb or an organ to this beautiful human body. But the prime reason of this human body is to pray. Now, where in the scripture does it say that? Bhagwan Sri Ram himself said in the Ramayana, Bare bhagyama nushatan pave Sura duralabha sab grant nahi gave Sadhana dham moksha kari dware Pai na jahi paralo kasaware Shri Ram Jai Ram Jaya Jaya Rama Shri Ram Jai Ram Jaya Jaya Rama. Because the Chaupai said Sadhana Dham Moksha Karadware Paina Jai Paraloka Savare. That putting everything aside, let us now focus on this gift of this human body that you have had to come through roughly 860,000 species of life to be blessed with this human body. Because it was your desire for spiritual liberation, for moksha, that you were gifted this human body. And when you got it, what happened? You deceive yourself by doing anything but sadhana, sadhana dham, but not any form of sadhana, but the sadhana that gives us moksha. So this beautiful verse says, if I get to be born as a human body, I would become a worshipper at your feet. And each nerve of this worshipper would be controlled by your beautiful hands. So which means is that we would live, not that the Lord would be outside, He's there, but this Lord that controls the nerves and the action of your whole body is your own supreme self. So we always pray that our Atma, that we live a life to realize our beautiful Atma. And the other mantra, and many would say, well, look, why didn't we do this at least simple mantra before? But it doesn't make sense to jump into a mantra without appreciating, the source of the mantra. If someone knows your source, then they are likely more to respect you or maybe even to disrespect you. But let us say in the Ramayana, beautiful, beautiful, when Hanumanji asked Bhagwan Sri Ram on the very first meeting, he says, you two godlike looking brothers, tell me who you are. Bhagwan Sri Ram did not say, I'm the most powerful archer in the world, or I'm the strongest person in the world. I can drain the oceans by one arrow. He didn't say anything of such nature, but he says, we are both the sons of Raja Dashrath. And the moment Sri Ram said that, Hanumanji knew that he was looking at Maryada Purushottam, Bhagwan Sri Ram. Now, what I'm saying, each one of you has your source. And when someone asks you who you are, the best way to define whom you are is along this verse, which we will discuss in another time. Whom you are, Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vashishyate. So, who am I? I am a derivative, or I am derived from that beautiful creator of this world, who is a sum totality of purity and perfection, and that is whom you are. But now let us go back to tuamevamata, chapita tuameva. But let's chant it first before we go down to the mantra. And the reason let's chant it, I'm going to just put an Om in front, as I should have done. Beautiful. Let us start with clasp hands as we will do in the mandir. Om tuamevamata chapita tuameva Tvameva bandhus chasaka tvameva Tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva Hari Om. All of the words in this mantra are filled with power and energy, but I'm going to highlight these beautiful 2 words that we will pay emphasis on. But let's chant it again, because it's very important at least to be able to clasp your hands and at least chant one mantra fluently. And now many of you I knew is a verse in mantras. So let us chant. Om tuamevamata chapita tvameva Tvameva bandhus jasika tvameva Tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Devotees, now we come to the source. Who was the first person that is reputed to have authored this beautiful mantra that is now what we call is like an emblem or is an anthem of our Sanatan Dharma, taught to as a first mantra to your young child or your young grandchild. But now when you teach your grandchild or your child this mantra, you'll be able to do it with so much more what we call divine force. So tuamevamata, as we said, is one of our most beloved mantra. Its origin. Spoken for the first time by Mataji Maharani Gandhari. And when you think of who Gandhari is, she was the supreme Maharani of that wonderful, kingdom that ruled over the whole of India. She was she had immense power, and she came from the country of Gandhar. From memory, I believe Gandhar is now what we call modern day Uzbekistan. So she was an Uzbek queen or some in that region, or Gandhar could have been maybe part of Afghanistan, but is that part of where she came from. And she was chosen to marry Drishraj. She was very fortunate to have given birth to 100 sons, of which the eldest was Duryodhana. Devotees, Duryodhana original name was Suyodhana, which means he was, before the Mahabharata, he was very noble, he was very righteous. But sometimes even the most noble and righteous person, we call jealousy and greed comes to them. So in seeing her sons and her family being destroyed, she clasped her hands and prayed to Bhagwan Shri Krishna. As we said, this beautiful mantra is sourced from the Mahabharata. It is again repeated in the Srimad Bhagavata and in the Vishnu Purana. The purpose of this mantra is not to think that God is sitting on a stone chair somewhere in heaven, but you just realize that that Supreme Lord, that Supreme Bhagwan, who you're referring to, is your spiritual power of the Paramatma that resides within you as your Atma. Pavanatanay Sankata Haran Mangalamurati Roop Ramalakana Sita Sahita Hirday Vasahu Surabhu Siyabaju Ramachandra Ki Jai Umapati Mahadev Ki Jai Pavan Sutta Hanuman ki jai. Hriday Vasahu Surabhup. Oh, in my heart resides that divinity of Sri Ram, Sri Lakshmi in the form of Mata Sita, Sri Sheshnag in the form of Lakshman, and then there is Shatrughan and Bharat. Devotees, you have within you a sum total of all of the energies required for your material and your spiritual sustenance. So this mantra, I said, it's a verse widely chanted for those seeking to experience the wisdom contained therein. So let us highlight this a little bit. If I can make it a little bit bigger. Right. Its verses are widely chanted by those seeking to experience the wisdom said to be contained therein. And remember, we are talking about tuamevamata, chapita tuameva, that mantra that we normally treat in such disrespect. Hurry up, Panditji, time to finish the mantras. We want to go home. Tuamevamata, chapita tuameva, tuameva bandhu, jasaka tuameva, tuameva vidya, dravinang tuameva, tuameva sarvang mama deva deva, om shanti, 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 hari om. How irreverent to chant such beautiful energy infused prayers, energy infused mantra, because you are saying, in line with the teachings of Bhagavad Gita chapter 6 verse 5, that you know that you are responsible for all of the powers required that the Supreme Mother and Father will give it to you. You are the one who is a friend to yourself and a brother to yourself. But most important, tuameva vidya, dravinang tuameva. You always need to focus on this, that no man can really give you wealth or knowledge. It is for you to be inspired by your own self and plan your acquisition of knowledge. The operative word here is vidya. Vidya comes from the Sanskrit word Veda. And vidya, sort of, it's more, for want of another way of describing it, it's like of the feminine gender. It's full of power. So when you say to this mantra, oh, divine being that resides within me, inspire me so that I may accumulate vidya. And with knowledge, may I then accumulate all forms of dravinam. Dravinam. This means all forms of wealth. So two things you are telling yourself: that you have the capability of generating, accumulating, and obtaining all forms of knowledge and all forms of wealth, because all of this come from the Supreme Lord. There is no limit to the wealth in this world, in this universe. There is no limit to the knowledge of the various type that you can accumulate in this universe. When we are doing mantra and we use the term vidya, it means that if you're a scientist, may you be blessed with the knowledge of finding and creating new inventions. If you're a teacher, may you be inspired with new way of transferring and passing on knowledge to your students. If you're going after wealth, let Bhagwan bless you with all forms of physical wealth, that your what we call your coffers must be overflowing with gold, but also may your heart be overflowing with divine love. So you have a wealth of wealth and you have a wealth of love. So this is this beautiful mantra. So let's chant it again and let it really sink into you. Om tuamevamata chapita tuameva, tuameva bandhu jasaka tuameva, Tuameva vidya dravinam tuameva. Tuameva sarvam mama deva deva. Tuamevamata chapita tuameva. Tuameva bandhuscha saka tuameva. Tuameva vidya dravinam tuameva. Tuameva sarvam mama deva deva. And I request you close your eyes and feel the power within you radiating with you and changing the nucleus of every cell, of every atom in your body, making you being reborn and being rebirthed to be this person who will now start, to demonstrate what we call divine knowledge and divine attributes. Tuamevamata chapita tuameva. Tuameva bandhus jasaka tuameva. Tuameva vidya dravinam tuameva. Tuameva sarvam mama deva deva. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O Supreme Lord, O resplendent creative divinity, you who resides with me as my strength and intellect. You are my mother, my father, my brother, and my friend. You are my knowledge, and you are my only wealth. You are everything to me, and you are the Lords of all Lords. And essentially, what we are saying, you are recognizing that as of now on, I'm not going to make the mistake in thinking that any person has the source of wealth or greatness. They are wrongfully or dishonestly claiming what belongs to the creator of this world, who is part of me. So I say to you, today, you have this affirmation where you say to yourself, O Supreme Lord, you are the one who is the source of all forms of knowledge and wealth. Be benevolent and send on to me all of my material and physical and spiritual requirements, and let there be an immense surplus. And this is the word sarvam, everything. Vidya means knowledge or wisdom. Deva means divinity, Pita, Father. Beautiful. One moment, let's go down. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Devotees, as we can only have time to do the second quality of a sannyasi. And remember now, it sounds like every one of you who are present on the satsang this evening is a veritable sannyasi if you think like one. Definition again is sannyasi is one who does not what we call seek material love, appreciation, adoration, or publicity, because being steeped in devotion and the Supreme Lord is within him, he gets all of those things naturally by a benevolent Lord. But mention the word love, but what is love in this context? It's what we call, it's a cultural paradigm to think that love only refers to that which is sensuous. In this context, the love that we are referring to, it's secret, it's redemptive, and is healing for individuals and societies and country at large. Love in this context is empathy. We are caring, where caring and devotion becomes as natural as our breath. So in our journey of life, if we can genuinely love each other and really mean it in a very divine way, then you will be amazed at the happiness that you will receive, because as you give this love out, it will come back to you in many, many bounties, in many, many different ways. As you give, you shall receive. So, devotees, I will now do the closing mantra and stop the screen sharing, and then we can have an interaction. If anybody has any questions, you can put it on the chat. We will be more than delighted to try to answer it, and to take it forward if we can't do it this time. So let us now just do this beautiful mantra. We will do two mantras, Gayatri mantra and tuamevamata. And let us this mantra, as we said, soak into our system. Om tuamevamata cha pita tuameva, tuameva bandhus jasaka tuameva, tuameva vidya dravinam tuameva, tuameva sarvam mama deva deva. Now just chant it slightly as though you're humming it as the second stage. Om tuamevamata cha pita tuameva, tuameva bandhus jasaka tuameva, tuameva vidya dravinam tuameva, tuameva sarvam mama deva deva. And finally, you chant it silently in your mind by just reading the screen while I chant it. Om tuamevamata cha pita tuameva, tuameva bandhus jasaka tuameva, tuameva vidya dravinam tuameva, tuameva sarvam mama deva deva. Om Gayatri mantra. Bhurbhuva swaha tat savitur varenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yo naha prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.